The night the child was born, every vampire in the Northern Hemisphere felt it. A pulse of power so raw it made centuries-old blood sing with recognition. In hospital room 413, fluorescent lights flickered like dying stars. And in the hallway outside, something ancient wearing a man's face heard 3 words that would remake the world. She may not survive. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly under stuttering fluorescent lights, each bulb dimming slightly as Lucien Ashford moved past. He didn't walk. He glided, a column of absolute control wrapped in a black cashmere coat, still damp from the October rain. 6 feet 4 inches of predatory grace, with eyes that watched empires crumble and now burned crimson with barely suppressed emotion. Nurse Rebecca Winters had worked the maternity ward for 17 years. She delivered over 2,000 babies, comforted countless frightened mothers, and prided herself on maintaining composure in crisis. But when she stepped into the corridor to face him, her clipboard trembled in her hands. She'd seen him before, 3 times during the pregnancy, always at night, always alone. Dr. Kaplan had noted the patient's unusual partner in her files, but said nothing more. Everyone knew. Everyone pretended not to. Mr. Ashford, Rebecca began, her voice professionally steady despite the primal instinct screaming at her to run. She had your baby. The words landed between them like stones dropped in still water. Lucien's expression didn't change, but the temperature plummeted. Rebecca watched Frost Spiderweb across the nearest window. A daughter, she continued, forcing herself to meet those inhuman eyes. 7 pounds 4 ounces. Perfectly healthy. But... The single word carried the weight of eternity. Rebecca swallowed. Sophia, there were complications. Massive hemorrhaging. We've done everything we can, but she's lost so much blood. Her heart is failing. I'm sorry, Mr. Ashford, but you need to prepare yourself. She may not survive. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the usual hospital sounds, the beeping monitors, the distant intercoms, the hushed conversations, seemed to fade into nothing. Lucien stood utterly still, a statue carved from ancient marble and dressed in modern clothes. Then something shifted. Rebecca felt it in her bones, a tremor of power that made her teeth ache and her vision blur. The lights flickered violently. Down the hall, a cart of medical supplies tipped over with a crash that made the night staff jump. Where? Not a question. A command that resonated in Rebecca's chest. Room 413, but he was already moving. Rebecca stumbled backward, her human eyes unable to track the speed at which he covered the distance. One moment he stood before her. The next, the door to room 413 was swinging open, and she was alone in a corridor that suddenly felt much colder. Inside the room, Lucien stopped. The clinical space reeked of blood and antiseptic, of desperate medicine and failing hope. Machines beeped frantically around a hospital bed where Sophia Chin lay motionless, her golden-brown skin now ash-pale, her black hair plastered her forehead with sweat. An oxygen mask covered her nose and mouth, fogging weakly with each shallow breath. She looked impossibly small, impossibly fragile. In the corner, in a clear bassinet under a warming lamp, a newborn cried. Lucien's head turned sharply toward the sound. He moved to the bassinet as if drawn by invisible threads, his hands that could crush stone, that had ended countless lives across 4 centuries, hovering uncertainly above the tiny, squirming form. The baby girl had her mother's features, but her father's eyes. Not red. Not yet. Perhaps never, but an unusual amber gold that caught the light strangely. She was wrapped in a standard hospital blanket, impossibly tiny fingers curled into fists as she wailed her displeasure at the cold, bright world she'd entered. When Lucien's shadow fell across her, she stopped crying. The baby stared up at him with those strange eyes, and something passed between them. A recognition, a connection that defied all his understanding of his own nature. He'd been told this was impossible. Vampires didn't reproduce, couldn't reproduce. The curse that granted immortality had stolen that particular gift centuries ago. Yet here she was, proof of the impossible. His daughter, his hands, steady as they'd been through wars and plagues, trembled as he reached down. He didn't lift her, didn't trust himself yet, but his finger brushed against her tiny fist. Instantly, her fingers uncurled and wrapped around his, gripping with surprising strength. The gesture undid something in him. Behind him, the machines monitoring Sophia began to scream. The steady beeping dissolved into a sustained, agonized tone that meant only one thing. Lucien spun around. On the monitor, Sophia's heart rate had become erratic, jumping wildly before plunging toward zero. Her chest barely rose. The oxygen mask fogged once, twice, then went still. The door burst open. Dr. Kaplan rushed in, followed by 2 nurses and a crash cart. "We're losing her." Charging paddles, now. They surrounded the bed and practiced choreography, cutting away Sophia's gown, applying gel, pressing the defibrillator paddles against her chest. Clear. Sophia's body convulsed. The monitor showed a brief spike, then flatlined again. Again, 300 joules. Clear. Another jolt. Another spike. Another flatline. Lucien watched him beside the bassinet. His daughter's fingers still wrapped around his. His face remained impassive, but inside and war raged. For 100 years of discipline, of control, of adherence to the ancient laws that governed his kind, all of it crumbling under the weight of this moment. The law was absolute. Never turn a human without the Council's permission. Never create another vampire without ancient sanction. Never expose a species to unnecessary risk. He'd lived by that law, enforced it, killed others for breaking it. But the law had been written in an age before this. Before her. Before a human woman had looked at a monster and seen a man. Before she'd trusted him enough to let him into her life, her bed, her heart. Before she'd carried the impossible inside her and given birth to a miracle. No pulse. Dr. Kaplan's voice cracked. Time of death. No. The single word cut through the chaos like a blade. Everyone froze. Lucien stood now beside the bed, having crossed the room into space between heartbeats. He looked down at Sophia's still face, at lips that had smiled at him, kissed him, told him she loved him despite knowing exactly what he was. "Everyone out," he said quietly. Dr. Kaplan straightened. "Mr. Ashford, I understand you're grieving, but we need to—" "Out!" Lucien's eyes flared crimson, and his voice dropped to a register that vibrated in human bones. "Now!" They fled. Even Dr. Kaplan, who delivered babies through hurricanes and blackouts, recognized the tone of something apex, something that stood at the top of the food chain and would not be denied. The door clicked shut. Lucien was alone with the 2 halves of his impossible family, the daughter who lived and breathed and the mother who no longer did. He sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress barely dipping under his weight. With infinite gentleness, he removed the oxygen mask from Sophia's face, brushed damp hair from her forehead, traced a line of her jaw with his thumb. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have known this would kill you. Should have stayed away." But she'd been so stubborn. When she discovered what he was, she hadn't run, hadn't screamed or begged or tried to bargain. She'd looked at him with those dark, intelligent eyes and said, "I know who you are. I know what you are, and I choose you anyway." He'd tried to leave, tried to protect her from the inevitable disaster that was a vampire falling in love with a human. But she'd found him again and again until finally he'd stopped running. 9 months ago, she'd told him she was pregnant. He'd thought a mistake, impossible biology, but the test confirmed it. Against every law of nature he understood, she carried his child. The pregnancy had been difficult, her body warring with something it didn't understand, something that fed on her strength even as it grew. He'd begged her to terminate, terrified of losing her, but she'd refused. "This is our miracle," she'd said, hand on her swollen belly. "Our daughter. I'm not giving up on her." So he'd stood by, helpless, watching her grow weaker even as her child grew stronger. And now, Lucien looked at Sophia's still face. 15 minutes without oxygen. Even if he called the doctors back, even if they somehow restarted her heart, the brain damage would be catastrophic. She would be a shell, and his daughter would grow up never knowing her mother's laugh, her kindness, her fierce, stubborn love. Unless, the law rose in his mind like a wall of stone, "Thou shalt not turn a human without sanction." The punishment is final death. But what was death to him anymore? What was law or counsel, or for centuries of existence, weighed against this moment? His decision crystallized with brutal clarity. "Forgive me," he whispered, though he didn't know if he was asking forgiveness from Sophia, from the council, or from whatever god might still listen to a creature like him. He bit into his own wrist, tearing through flesh until ancient blood welled up, black and thick in the dim light. He pressed the wound to Sophia's lips, tilting her head back, massaging her throat to make her swallow. "Come back," he commanded, pouring for centuries will into those two words. "Come back to me. Come back to her." The blood flowed into Sophia's mouth, down her throat, spreading through her dead circulatory system like black lightning. For long seconds, nothing happened. Then her body seized. Lucian held her down as the transformation began. The oldest magic, the darkest curse, the gift that was also a theft. Her back arched, her fingers clawed at the sheets. Behind her closed eyelids, her eyes moved frantically. The machines, disconnected now, remained silent, but Lucian could hear it. The first stuttering attempt at a heartbeat, then another, stronger, faster, her cells rewriting themselves, death retreating before the onslaught of his blood, mortality burning away like morning mist. Sophia's eyes snapped open. They were crimson. She sucked in a breath, unnecessary now, but instinct died hard and screamed, not in pain, though pain racked her transforming body, but in shock at the sensory overload. She could hear everything. Conversations 3 floors down, the rain against windows, the electrical hum of wiring in the walls. Could smell the antiseptic, the blood, the fierce sweat the nurses had left behind, and underneath it all, the sweet milk scent of the baby in the corner. The baby. Sophia's head whipped toward the bassinet with predatory speed, her lips pulled back from teeth that were already sharpening. Hunger roared through her, new and overwhelming and demanding. Lucian moved between her and their daughter in an instant. "No," he said firmly. "Look at me, Sophia. Look at me." She snarled, feral, every instinct screaming at her feed, to tear into the nearest source of warm blood and glut herself. "Sophia." His voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "You are stronger than this. I know it hurts. I know you're hungry, but you will not hurt her. You will not hurt our daughter." At the word daughter, something flickered in those red eyes. Recognition. Memory. Humanity fighting against the monster. Lucian. Her voice was raw, strange to her own ears. Too sharp, too clear. "I'm here. I've got you. Just breathe. Focus on my voice." What did you do?" "I saved you. The only way I could." Understanding crashed over her like a wave. Her hands flew to her throat, feeling the absence of a pulse, the stillness where her heartbeat should be. "No. No, no, no. You turned me. Lucian, you turned me. You were dead. Our daughter needed her mother. The law. Damn the law." Sophia looked past him at the bassinet, where their baby had begun to cry again, soft mewling sounds that cut through every other noise. The hunger was still there, fierce and demanding, but beneath it, love. Overwhelming, instinctive, absolute. "I want to hold her," Sophia whispered. "Not yet. You're too new, too unstable. In a few hours, when the hunger settles, I want to hold my daughter." Sophia met his eyes, and despite the red glow, despite the fangs, he saw her. His Sophia, stubborn and fierce and unbreakable. "I carried her for 9 months. I died bringing her into this world. I will hold her, Lucian. Now." They stared at each other, apex predator and newborn vampire, monster and mother. Finally, Lucian nodded slowly. Together, they approached the bassinet. Sophia's hands shook as she reached in, but her movements were careful, controlled. She lifted the baby with infinite gentleness, cradling her against her chest, and the crying stopped. The baby looked up at her mother with those strange amber eyes and smiled. Sophia's face crumpled. Unnecessary tears, blood tears now, crimson tracks down her pale cheeks, fell onto the hospital blanket. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I'm not. But I'm here. I'm here and I love you. God, I love you so much. Lucian stood beside them, one hand on Sophia's shoulder, the other gently touching his daughter's head. For just a moment, they were a family. Impossible, forbidden, perfect. Then the door burst open. 3 figures stood in the hallway, and Lucian's blood ran cold, colder than usual. He recognized them instantly. Marcus the executioner, Elena the enforcer, and Dorian the adjudicator, the council's hunters. They must have felt the turning, felt the law breaking like a bone snapping. Marcus stepped forward, his ancient face impassive. Lucian Ashford, apex of the North American territory, you stand accused of illegal transformation. The sentence is final death. Surrender yourself for immediate execution. Sophia's arms tightened around the baby. Lucian moved in front of them both. No, he said simply. Elena's eyes widened. You would defy the council? I would burn the world for them. The 3 hunters exchanged glances. This was unprecedented. The apex vampire, the enforcer law, the council's own champion, now standing against everything he'd upheld for centuries. Then you leave us no choice, Dorian said sadly. We will take you by force. Lucian's eyes blazed crimson. The lights exploded in a cascade of sparks, plunging the room into darkness. When his voice came, it carried the full weight of 400 years of power. You can try. The darkness lasted only a heartbeat before emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the hospital room in eerie red. In that crimson glow, 5 immortal predators faced each other across a space meant for bringing life into the world, not ending it. Marcus moved first. For centuries old, built like a gladiator from the Roman arenas where he'd once fought, he covered the distance to Lucian in a blur of inhuman speed. His fist, capable of punching through concrete, aimed straight for Lucian's heart. Lucian caught it mid-strike, without looking. The impact sent a shock wave through the room that shattered the windows, raining glass onto the rain-slicked street 4 stories below. Alarms began shrieking throughout the hospital. Sophia, Lucian said calmly, still holding Marcus's fist immobile, take our daughter and go to the parking garage. My car. Keys are in my coat pocket. Drive to the estate. The safe room. Now. I'm not leaving you. Now. The command resonated with such power that even Elena and Dorian flinched. Sophia understood. Still cradling the baby against her chest, she moved with the new speed of her transformed body, grabbing Lucian's coat from the chair and vanishing to the door in a streak of motion that her human eyes could never have followed. Elena started after her, but Lucian released Marcus and intercepted, his hand closing around Elena's throat. Your fight is with me, enforcer. Leave my family alone. Elena's eyes flashed with fury. She was ancient too, nearly as old as Lucian himself, and she didn't appreciate being handled like a child. Her knee came up sharply, catching him in the ribs with enough force to crack them. Lucian grunted but didn't let go. You've doomed them, Elena hissed. The council will never stop hunting. That abomination you created, that hybrid child. Lucian slammed her into the wall. So hard the concrete cracked. Call her an abomination again, he whispered, face inches from Elena's, and I will show you what true monstrosity looks like. Dorian's voice cut through the violence with cold authority. Enough. Lucian, you know this cannot stand. The law exists for a reason. Unauthorized transformations create chaos, exposure, risk to our entire species. You of all people should understand this. Lucian released Elena, who dropped to her feet, rubbing her throat. He turned to face Dorian, the eldest of 3, a vampire who'd walked the earth for over a millennium. In the red emergency lighting, Dorian looked like a Renaissance painting come to life. Beautiful, terrible, eternal. I do understand, Lucian said quietly. I've enforced that law for 200 years. Hunted down rogues who broke it. Executed them without mercy. I know exactly what I've done, Dorian, and I accept the consequences. Then surrender yourself. No. Lucian straightened to his full height, power radiating from him in waves that made the remaining medical equipment spark and fail. I will not die today. I will not leave my daughter fatherless and my mate alone to face your judgment. If the council wants my head, They'll have to send more than 3 hunters to claim it. Marcus laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Arrogant. Even you cannot stand against all 3 of us, Apex. You're powerful, yes, but we are the Council's chosen executioners for a reason. Then execute me. Lucian spread his arms. I'm waiting. They came at him together. Marcus from the front, fists like battering rams. Elena from the left, her movements liquid grace masking deadly intent. Dorian from the right, ancient power condensed into elegant strikes. The hospital room erupted into chaos. Lucian fought like a demon, like the apex predator he'd been named for. He moved between their attacks with supernatural precision, blocking Marcus, redirecting Elena, meeting Dorian's strikes with his own. The walls cracked under the force of missed blows. The floor tiles shattered. The bed folded like paper when Marcus was thrown into it. But 3 against 1, even for an apex, was mathematics that didn't favor survival. Elena's claws raked across Lucian's back, tearing through his shirt and the flesh beneath. Marcus's fist connected with his jaw, snapping his head sideways with bone-breaking force. Dorian's palm strike caught him in the solar plexus, sending him crashing to the remains of the wall into the corridor. Lucian hit the floor hard, rolled, came up with blood, his own ancient blood, dripping from his mouth. The hunters emerged from the demolished room, surrounding him in the hallway where terrified hospital staff had already fled. It's over, Dorian said, not unkindly. You fought well, old friend, but some laws are absolute. Some prices must be paid. Lucian wiped blood from his lip and smiled, a terrible, feral expression. You're right. Some prices must be paid. But not by me. Not tonight. He closed his eyes and reached deep inside himself, to the core of power that had made him Apex, the dominant vampire of an entire continent. He'd never fully unleashed it before, had never needed to. The power was dangerous, unpredictable, capable of causing catastrophic destruction. But his daughter needed time to escape. Sophia needed time to reach safety. For them, he would risk everything. Lucian, don't. Dorian's eyes widened with recognition and fear. Too late. The power exploded outward. Every light in the hospital blew simultaneously. Every window on the 4th floor shattered outward in a crystalline cascade. The building itself groaned as if in pain. And from Lucian erupted a shock wave of pure vampiric energy that sent all 3 hunters flying backward like leaves in a hurricane. Marcus crashed through a wall. Elena tumbled down the stairwell. Dorian managed to stay on his feet, but staggered, ancient power meeting ancient power. Lucian stood at the center of the devastation, eyes blazing like twin stars, every muscle tense with barely controlled force. Around him, the air shimmered with heat despite the cold October night. The floor beneath his feet had cracked in a perfect circle. I am Lucian Ashford, he said, and his voice carried to every corner of the building. I am Apex. I am 400 years of war, survival, and absolute dominance. I have enforced the Council's law without question or mercy. But tonight, I choose love over law. Tonight, I choose my family over my oath. And if the Council wants to stop me, tell them to send their entire army, because I will tear through anyone who threatens what is mine. He turned and walked away, down the corridor, past unconscious hospital workers, through doors that bent and twisted open at his mere presence. Behind him, the 3 hunters struggled to their feet, battered and stunned. Should we follow? Marcus growled, blood trickling from his ear. Dorian shook his head slowly. No, this is beyond us now. We report to the Council. Let them decide how to handle a rogue Apex. He looked at the destruction surrounding them, felt the residual power still crackling in the air. God help us all. In the parking garage, Sophia sat in the driver's seat of Lucian's black Mercedes, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly the leather creaked. In the passenger seat, secured in a car seat that Lucian must have installed weeks ago in hopeful preparation, their daughter slept peacefully, tiny chest rising and falling with unnecessary breaths, a reflex from her human half. Sophia's new senses overwhelmed her. She could hear the baby's heartbeat, strong and steady, could smell the rain on concrete The oil stains, the exhaust fumes, and underneath it all, the intoxicating scent of human blood from the hospital above. Her fangs ached. Her throat burned with thirst. But stronger than the hunger was the terror. She was dead. She died. She remembered it. The pain fading, the darkness closing in, the sense of letting go. And then nothing, until Lucien's blood had burned through her like liquid fire, dragging her back from whatever lay beyond. Now she was something else, something other, a vampire, a monster. She looked at her hands on the steering wheel. They seemed the same, but she could feel the strength in them, the potential for violence. She'd always been strong, had worked construction during summers in college, had never shied from physical work. But this was different. She could feel that she could bend the steering wheel like clay if she wanted to. The baby stirred, making soft sounds. Without thinking, Sophia reached over and gently rocked the car seat. Sure, sweet girl. Mama's here. Mama's... She stopped. Was she still Mama? Could something dead be a mother? The passenger door opened, making Sophia jump. Lucien slid into back seat, moving with liquid grace despite the tears in his clothes and the blood, both his and others, splattered across his skin. Drive, he said shortly. Head north on Highway 12. Don't stop for anything. Sophia started the engine, her new reflexes making her movements too fast, too jerky. The car lurched forward. Sorry, I'm still... You're doing fine. Just focus. Feel the machine, don't fight it. She took an unnecessary breath, centered herself, and tried again. This time the Mercedes glided smoothly out of the parking space and toward the exit. The night outside looked different through her transformed eyes, sharper, clearer, every shadow distinct, every raindrop visible. Are they following us? She asked, merging onto the nearly empty street. Not yet. I bought us time, but they'll report to the council. We have perhaps 12 hours before the full force of vampire law descends on us. 12 hours. Sophia's voice cracked. And then what? Lucien was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the rain-soaked city passing by. Then we fight, or we run, or... He met her eyes in the rear-view mirror. I'm sorry, Sophia. I've destroyed your life. Made you into this without your permission. Marked you for death by the very laws I spent centuries upholding. You saved my life. I ended it. This isn't life. This is... Stop. Sophia's hands tightened on the wheel. I was dead, Lucien. Actually dead. I felt it, and you brought me back. Maybe not the same as I was. But I'm here. I'm thinking, feeling, breathing. You don't need to breathe. I'm breathing anyway. She glanced in the rearview mirror at the sleeping baby. She needs me. Our daughter needs her mother, whatever form that mother takes. You did what you had to do, what I would have begged you to do if I had been conscious. The council? Fuck the council. The curse felt strange on her tongue, too sharp, too loud. Everything was too much. I don't care about ancient vampire politics. I care about our daughter. What did we even name her? We never decided. We were going to wait until we met her, and then I was dying, and... Aurora. Lucien's voice softened. I've been thinking, Aurora. It means dawn. New beginning. Light and darkness. Sophia felt blood tears prick her eyes again. Aurora, she whispered, testing the name. Aurora Ashford-Chun. If you approve. It's perfect. They drove in silence for a while. The city giving way to suburbs, then to the dark countryside beyond. The rain had stopped, leaving the world washed clean and gleaming under a moon that Sophia could see with crystalline clarity. She could read road signs from a mile away, could see individual leaves on trees as they passed. What's this state like? She finally asked. You've mentioned it, but I've never been there. It's old. I built it in 1847, back when this area was still wilderness. 30 acres, heavily wooded, with a main house and several outbuildings. The safe room is below ground, reinforced steel and concrete, with its own power supply and provisions. We can hold out there for weeks if necessary. And then, Lucien met her eyes in the mirror again. I don't know. I've never been hunted before. I was always the hunter. Aurora made a small sound, her tiny face scrunching up. Sophia's head whipped toward her, new instincts screaming danger, threat, protect. But the baby just yawned and settled back into sleep. Will she be like us? Sophia asked quietly. Will she need blood? I don't know. No one knows. A vampire-human hybrid has never existed before. At least not that any records show. Lucian leaned forward, his hand gently touching Aurora's tiny fingers. She has a heartbeat, body warmth. She seems fully human in those ways. But her eyes, and the power I felt when she was born, she's something new, something unprecedented. The council will want to study her, or kill her. They'll do neither. I will die 1,000 final deaths before I let them touch her. The certainty in his voice sent a shiver through Sophia. This was the apex vampire, the enforcer, the executioner, the monster who'd built a reputation on absolute ruthlessness. And he was her daughter's father. Tell me about them, Sophia said. The council. If we're going to survive this, I need to understand what we're up against. Lucian settled back into his seat. The Grand Council consists of 7 elders, the oldest and most powerful vampires in existence. They govern our species, enforce our laws, maintain the secrecy that keeps us safe from human discovery. The eldest, Constantine, has walked this earth for over 2,000 years. Jesus. Constantine knew Jesus, or claims to. A brief, dark smile. The Council's primary law is simple. Preserve the species at all costs. Everything else, the prohibition against unauthorized transformations, the limits on feeding, the territories, all of it serves that one purpose. We survive by remaining hidden. We remain hidden by maintaining strict control over our numbers and our actions. And you broke that control. Spectacularly. Sophia took the exit Lucian indicated, following a narrower road that wound through dense forest. What will they do? Standard protocol would be to send hunters to execute both of us, then take Aurora for evaluation. His voice hardened. But I'm not standard. I'm Apex. They can't simply send a few executioners and expect success. They'll have to mobilize significant forces, which takes time. Time we can use. Use for what? For me to call in every favor I've accumulated over 4 centuries. To reach out to allies, to vampires who owe me their existence or their freedom, to build our own force. You're talking about war. I'm talking about survival. If the Council moves against us, they won't stop until we're destroyed. Our only chance is to make the cost of that destruction too high to bear. The car turned onto a private drive, barely visible from the road. Trees close and overhead. Ancient oaks and maples at Lucian had probably watched grow from saplings. The headlights caught glimpses of stone walls, iron gates hanging open. Finally, they emerged into a clearing where a massive Victorian house stood silhouetted against a star-filled sky. 3 stories of dark stone and darker wood, with towers and gables and dozens of windows that reflected the moonlight like watching eyes. Home, Lucian said quietly. Or at least one of them. Sophia parked in front of the main entrance, a heavy oak door that looked like it could withstand a siege. She carefully unbuckled Aurora from the car seat, cradling her daughter against her chest. The baby's warmth soaked through her shirt, and Sophia was struck by how fragile she felt, how easily she could be hurt. I will protect you, Sophia whispered against Aurora's downy head. No matter what I have to become, no matter what I have to do, you will be safe. Lucian appeared beside them, moving with that unsettling speed. He carried bags that Sophia hadn't noticed him packing. Clothes, supplies, items grabbed from the hospital in the chaos. His efficiency was almost frightening. He unlocked the door and ushered them inside. The interior was unexpected. Sophia had imagined Gothic darkness, heavy furniture, ancient and oppressive decor. Instead, the entry hall was surprisingly modern. Clean lines, subtle lighting, artwork that looked contemporary. Only the bones of the house, the stone walls and heavy beams, betrayed its age. The safe room, Lucian said, leading them through a living room and down a hallway. He pressed his palm against what looked like ordinary wood paneling, and a section swung open to reveal a steel door with a biometric lock. His handprint glowed green, and the door opened with a hiss of pressurized air. Below was a space that looked more like a luxury bunker than a traditional safe room. Stone stairs descended to a large chamber filled with modern furniture, a kitchenette, a bathroom, and several doors leading to what must be bedrooms. Generators hummed softly in the background. I had this built after September 11th, Lucien explained. Seemed prudent. It's designed to withstand almost anything: bombs, fire, sustained assault, air filtration, water purification, provisions for 6 months. And most importantly, the walls are lined with silver titanium alloy. Any vampire trying to break through would burn before they got halfway. Sophia looked around, bouncing Aurora gently as the baby started to fuss. You planned for this, for being hunted. I've been alive 400 years by never being unprepared. He set the bags down and moved to what looked like a communications console built into one wall. Screens flickered to life, showing camera feeds from around the property. We're safe here. For now. Aurora's fussing intensified, turning into full crying. Sophia rocked her, made soothing sounds, but the baby's face was red, her tiny hands waving in distress. She's hungry, Sophia realized with sinking feeling. Lucien, she needs to eat, and I can't. She looked down at her chest, at her body that no longer functioned the way it had. Can I still? Lucien's expression softened. I don't know. Your body is different now. But perhaps. He moved to one of the bags and pulled out several bottles of formula, supplies that the hospital must have provided. We can try this. Sophia took a bottle, warming it with her hands, realizing after a moment that her hands were naturally cold now, and she had to run it under warm water instead. She tested the temperature the way she'd read in 100 parenting books, then offered it to Aurora. The baby latched on immediately, sucking hungrily, her cries fading to satisfied sounds. Sophia sank into a chair, overwhelmed by a wave of emotion so intense it made her dizzy. This was real. She was a mother. This tiny, perfect creature depended on her for everything. And Sophia was dead, transformed, hunted, with no idea how to be what Aurora needed. Lucien knelt beside them, his hand gentle on Sophia's shoulder. You're doing perfectly, he said quietly. I'm terrified. So am I? She looked at him, at this ancient, powerful being who just declared war on his entire species for them. What happens now? Now we prepare. I need to make calls, reach out to allies, shore up our defenses. You need to learn control, how to manage the hunger, the strength, the speed. And we both need to figure out how to care for our daughter in the middle of a war zone. Just another day in the life. He smiled, a real smile, rare and precious. Welcome to immortality, Sophia Chun. I'm sorry it's not under better circumstances. Are you kidding? She looked down at Aurora, who gazed up at her with those strange amber eyes while drinking her bottle. I get to watch her grow up. All the years I thought I'd miss because I was dying, I get them all now. However long it takes. Forever if necessary. She met Lucien's eyes. I'd say these are pretty damn good circumstances. He leaned forward and kissed her forehead gently. I love you, both of you, more than I knew I was capable of loving anything. We love you too, Sophia whispered, all the way to final death and back. Aurora finished her bottle with a satisfied sound. Sophia burped her carefully, then held her close, breathing in her scent, milk and baby powder, and something uniquely her own. This was her daughter, her miracle, worth dying for, worth being reborn for, worth fighting the entire vampire world for. Above them, through the reinforced ceiling, Sophia's new ears caught the sound of cars approaching on the distant road. Multiple vehicles, moving fast. Lucien heard it too. He straightened, his expression hardening. They're here, faster than I expected. What do we do? He moved to the communications console, fingers flying over controls. On the screens, Sophia could see headlights turning onto the private drive. 6 vehicles at least, maybe more. We do what we have to, Lucien said. We survive. He pulled out a phone and made a call. When someone answered, his voice was calm but carried absolute authority. Marcuston, this is Lucien Ashford. I'm calling in the favor you owe me. I need your pack. All of them. My location. Now. He paused, listening. Yes, I know what I'm asking. Yes, I'll owe you in return. Just get here. We don't have much time. He hung up and made another call. Then another, building an army with phone calls and old debts and promises of future favors. Sophia watched him work, still holding Aurora close. Her daughter, her family, worth everything. The first car reached the house. Doors opened. Figures emerged. Vampires. She could sense it now, feel it in her bones. Hunters. Executioners. Come to end them all. Let them come, Sophia whispered, feeling her fangs extend, feeling the predator inside her wake and snarl. I died once today already. I'm not doing it again. Lucien looked at her, and something like pride flickered in his eyes. That's my mate, he said softly. Above ground, the siege began. The monitors showed them everything. 23 vampires emerging from 7 vehicles, surrounding the estate with military precision. Sophia recognized them from the hospital. Marcus, Elena, Dorian, but the others were strangers. Ancient faces, cold eyes, weapons that gleamed silver in the moonlight. Silver bullets, Lucien murmured, watching the screens. Silver blades. They came prepared for war. In Sophia's arms, Aurora slept peacefully, oblivious to the death gathering around them. Sophia had laid her in a portable crib that Lucien had somehow produced from storage, then stood watching the monitors with her new predator's vision, seeing every detail with painful clarity. How long until your allies arrive? She asked. Lucien checked his watch, a gesture of habit more than necessity. Marcus Chen's pack? 20 minutes, maybe less. Their words. They can move fast when motivated. The others. He trailed off, making another call that went to voicemail. On the main monitor, a figure stepped forward from the group, even to the camera feed. Sophia felt the weight of his presence, ancient, powerful, terrifying. He was tall, slender, with features that might have been carved from marble. His hair was so pale it seemed to glow in the moonlight. Constantine, Lucien breathed. The first elder himself. They sent their eldest. The figure looked directly at the camera, as if he could see through it to the people watching below. When he spoke, his voice carried through the external speakers with eerie clarity, accented with the cadence of a language dead for millennia. Lucien Ashford, you know why we are here. You have violated the oldest laws of our kind. The punishment is absolute. Surrender yourself an illegal transformation, and we will make it swift. The child will be taken for study, but not harmed. You have my word. Lucien's hand slammed down on the console, cracking the metal. His word means nothing. They'll dissect Aurora like a laboratory specimen, and study is just a polite word for torture. Sophia felt rage boil through her, hot, fierce, maternal, over my dead body. That's precisely what they're counting on. On screen, Constantine waited. When no response came, he nodded slowly. Very well. You have chosen your path. We will take you by force, and there will be no mercy. Not for you, not for your mate, and not for the abomination you created. He gestured, and the vampires began to move toward the house. Lucien pulled out what looked like a modified phone and pressed a sequence of buttons. I had the ground prepared, he said. Multiple defensive measures. It won't stop them, but it will slow them down. The first vampire to reach the porch exploded in flames. Sophia gasped. On the monitor, she watched as a vampire, a woman with dark hair, stepped onto what must have been a pressure plate. UV lights hidden in the porch ceiling blazed alive with an intensity that rivaled the sun. The vampire's scream was brief and terrible as she combusted, her body disintegrating into ash in seconds. The other vampires pulled back, suddenly wary. UV kill zones, Lucien explained. I have them positioned at every entrance. They'll avoid those now, which funnels them to the locations I want them. You've been planning this for a while. I've been alive for 4 centuries by always having a contingency plan. He pressed more buttons. But eventually they'll breach the house. When they do, He looked at her seriously. Sophia, I need you to stay down here. Protect Aurora. Don't come up no matter what you hear. The hell I will. You're not facing them alone. I'm Apex. I can handle 23 vampires, including the first elder. Don't bullshit me, Lucian. Sophia moved close to him, her new strength radiating. We're stronger together. You taught me that. When you first told me what you were, when I should have run screaming, you said we were stronger together. That hasn't changed. You're barely 24 hours old as a vampire. You don't know how to fight, Then I'll learn fast. I'm a quick study. She glanced at Aurora, sleeping peacefully. Besides, if they get past you, I'm the last line of defense anyway. Might as well make our stand together. Lucian stared at her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he pulled her close and kissed her, deep, fierce, desperate. When they separated, his eyes were blazing red. You are magnificent, he whispered, and terrifying. And if we survive this, remind me to properly explain to you how insane you are. It's a date. A crash from above made them both look at the monitors. 3 vampires had somehow bypassed the UV zones and were smashing through a second-floor window. More were circling the house, testing defenses, probing for weaknesses. Lucian grabbed what looked like a sword from a weapons cabinet built into the wall, a blade that gleamed with a strange, dark sheen. Silver titanium alloy, he explained. Burns vampires on contact, but won't hurt me as long as I don't hold it too long. He handed Sophia a similar blade, shorter, easier to wield. The moment her fingers touched it, she felt a sting that made her want to drop it, but she held on, gritting her teeth. The pain means it's working, Lucian said. Use it on them. Aim for the heart, the throat, major arteries. Vampires can heal most injuries, but not decapitation and not total exsanguination. Sophia tested the way of the blade, surprised at how natural it felt. Her new body seemed to know what to do with it, instinct she'd never had before rising to the surface. The predator inside her purred with anticipation. Another crash, this time from the main floor. Multiple vampires were in the house now, methodically searching room by room. Lucian moved to the safe room door, his hand on the palm scanner. Stay behind me. If things go badly, seal the door and don't open for anyone but me or Marcus Chun. The code is Aurora's birthday, October 26, 2024. 10/26/24. Lucian, promise me, Sophia. If I fall, you protect our daughter. That's all that matters. She looked at Aurora, then back at him. I promise. But you're not falling. Not tonight. He smiled grimly and opened the door. They ascended the stone stairs silently, vampiric grace making their movements soundless. At the top, the hidden panel that concealed the safe room entrance remained closed. Through it, Sophia could hear voices, footsteps, the systematic destruction of Lucian's home as the hunters searched. Lucian held up 3 fingers. 2. 1. The panel exploded outward. Lucian moved through the opening like death incarnate, his blade singing through the air. The first vampire, a male who'd been standing too close, lost his head before he could react. The body crumpled, and Lucian was already moving, engaging 2 more who'd been in the hallway. Sophia followed, her new instincts guiding her. A female vampire lunged at her from the left. Sophia's blade came up automatically, catching the attacker across the chest. The vampire screamed as the silver burned through flesh. Sophia followed with a kick that sent the woman crashing through a wall. Not bad for a newborn, the vampire snarled, recovering with inhuman speed. Blood sizzled where the blade had cut her. But you're still just a weak little human playing at being a monster. Something inside Sophia snapped. The hunger she'd been suppressing, the rage at having her life torn apart, the primal fury of a mother defending her child. All of it erupted. She moved faster than thought, closing the distance and driving her blade through the vampire's heart. I am not weak, she hissed into the dying woman's shocked face. I am a mother, and you threaten my daughter. She ripped the blade free, and the vampire collapsed, ash already beginning to claim her body. Sophia stood over the remains, chest heaving with unnecessary breath. Blood splattered across her face and clothes. She felt alive, more alive than she'd ever felt as a human. The power singing through her veins, the predator inside her fully awake and hungry for more. A slow clap echoed through the hallway. Constantine stood at the far end, flanked by Marcus and Elena. Behind them, more vampires were entering the house, drawn by the sounds of combat. "Impressive," Constantine said in his ancient voice. "The newborn has teeth. Lucian, you've created quite the warrior. What a waste that she must die." Lucian positioned himself between Constantine and Sophia, blade ready. "You'll have to go through me first, old man. That can be arranged." Constantine moved, even with her enhanced vision. Sophia barely tracked it. One moment, he stood at the end of the hallway. The next, he was in front of Lucian, his hand around Lucian's throat, lifting him off his feet. The speed was impossible, the strength overwhelming. "You are my finest enforcer," Constantine said sadly. "My champion. I had such hopes for you, Lucian. And you throw it all away for this? For a human woman and a hybrid abomination." Lucian's blade flashed, cutting across Constantine's arm. The elder dropped him with a hiss of pain, silver burning through ancient flesh. Lucian rolled, came up fighting, his strikes precise and deadly. But Constantine was 2,000 years old and had forgotten more about combat than most vampires would ever learn. He parried, blocked, countered with strikes that shattered walls when Lucian dodged. They moved through the house like a hurricane, destroying everything in their path. Sophia tried to help, but Marcus intercepted her, his gladiator's strength overwhelming. He slammed her into a wall hard enough to crack her ribs. Pain exploded through her chest, different from human pain, sharper, but already healing. "Nothing personal," Marcus rumbled. "Just following orders." "Then you're in the wrong profession." Sophia snarled back. She went low, using her smaller size and new speed to slip under his guard. Her blade found his thigh, and Marcus roared. Sophia pressed the advantage, striking again and again, each cut burning him, weakening him. But Elena joined the fight, and suddenly Sophia was facing two ancient vampires with barely a day's experience. She fought desperately, instinct and rage keeping her alive, but she was losing ground. A blade sliced across her shoulder. She stumbled. Elena's foot caught her in the ribs, sending her sprawling. Marcus raised his fist for a killing blow and exploded backward as something massive and furry tackled him through a window. Werewolves poured into the house. They were huge, 7 feet tall in their war forms, covered in thick fur and corded muscle. Sophia recognized the lead wolf from Lucian's description, Marcus Chun, no relation to her despite the shared surname, Alpha of the Pacific Northwest Pack. He'd brought at least 20 wolves with him. The battle became chaos. Vampires versus werewolves, ancient enemies locked in savage combat. The house shook with the violence. Walls crumbled. Fires started as someone knocked over lamps. Through it all, Lucian and Constantine fought like gods, their power making the very air crackle. Sophia scrambled to her feet, using the distraction to press her attack on Elena. The ancient vampire's attention was split between Sophia and 2 massive wolves flanking her. Sophia's blade found Elena's throat, opening a gash that hissed and smoked. Elena screamed and fell back. Hands clutched to her neck, trying to stop the silver poison blood from gushing out. "That's for calling my daughter an abomination," Sophia said coldly. She turned to find Lucian. He was losing. Constantine had him pinned against what remained of a wall, his hand driven through Lucian's chest, grasping for his heart. Lucian's face was twisted in agony, his own hands wrapped around Constantine's wrist, trying desperately to pull it free. "Any last words, my wayward son?" Constantine asked almost gently. Sophia didn't think, didn't plan. She just moved, channeling every ounce of her new strength, her new speed, her absolute refusal to let this ancient monster kill the father of her child. Her blade took Constantine through the back, driving straight through his spine and out through his chest. The first elder froze, shock blooming across his ancient features. He looked down at the blade protruding from his chest, then back over his shoulder at Sophia. "Impossible," he whispered. "A newborn cannot." "I am not a newborn," Sophia said, her voice shaking with fury and fear and desperate courage. I am a mother protecting her family, and you are in my way. She ripped the blade sideways through the side of his chest, opening a massive wound. Constantine staggered, releasing Lucian, his hand clutching at the gaping hole where his heart had been. Ancient blood, thick and black, poured from the wound. This is not over. Constantine gasped. His body was already beginning to deteriorate, aging rapidly as 2,000 years of existence caught up to him all at once. Yes, Lucian said, pulling himself free and standing beside Sophia. It is. Constantine crumbled to dust. The entire house went silent. Every vampire, every werewolf, every combatant froze, staring at the small pile of ash that had been the first elder of the Grand Council. Sophia stood over it, blade still in hand, splattered with ancient blood, her eyes blazing red with power she barely understood. Holy shit, someone whispered. Marcus Chun, the werewolf, shifted back to human form, standing naked and unconcerned in the wreckage. Did she really just kill Constantine? She did, Lucian confirmed, pride and terror warring in his voice. The remaining council vampires exchanged glances. Elena, still holding her throat, stumbled forward. The first elder is dead. The law states the one who kills an elder may challenge for their seat. I don't want his seat, Sophia said firmly. I want my family left alone. That's all. We won't interfere with the council, won't expose vampires to humans, won't break any laws. Just leave us in peace. Dorian stepped forward from where he'd been fighting 3 wolves simultaneously. He was bloody, beaten, but still carried himself with ancient dignity. It's not that simple. The council, Marcus Chin interrupted, just lost its oldest member to a day-old vampire. Maybe it's time to reconsider who makes the rules. The werewolf alpha looked around at his pack, at the vampires, at the destruction. Seems to me that old laws aren't working so well anymore. Maybe it's time for new ones. Laws that don't require killing newborn babies and their parents for the crime of existing. Murmurs of agreement rippled through both groups. The younger vampires, those who'd seen centuries of the council's absolute rule, looked at each other with something like hope dawning in their ancient eyes. Elena lowered her hand from her throat, the wound already healing despite the silver. You would have us completely restructure vampire society, abandon traditions that have kept us safe for millennia? I'd have you recognize that the world has changed. Marcus Chin shot back. Wurs and vamps have been enemies since forever, but we just fought together tonight. Things don't have to be the way they've always been. Sophia lowered her blade, exhausted beyond measure. She could feel Aurora in the safe room below, still sleeping somehow despite the battle raging above. Could feel Lucian beside her, wounded but alive. Could feel the weight of Constantine's death settling onto her shoulders. I didn't want any of this, she said quietly. I just wanted to be a mother, to love Lucian, to live whatever life we could build together. But if killing an elder is what it takes to protect my family, then that's what I'll do. And if the council sends more, I'll kill them too. All of them if necessary. The steel in her voice made even the ancient vampires step back. Lucian placed his hand on her shoulder. The council has 7 elders. Now they have 6. I propose a vote among those 6. Leave us in peace, recognize Aurora as the first of new kind, or send your forces and see how many more elders die. Because make no mistake, his eyes swept across all the assembled vampires. Sophia and I will take as many of you with us as we can. We have nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Dorian looked at the other vampires, at the werewolves standing ready to fight again, at the destruction wrought by this single family defending itself. Slowly, he nodded. I will take your message to the council, he said formally. I will advocate for adaptation. The old ways are not serving us anymore. Perhaps it is time for change. And if the council disagrees? Lucian asked. Then there will be war, Dorian said simply. But not tonight. Tonight, we have all seen enough death. He looked at Constantine's ashes. More than enough. One by one, the council vampires retreated, filing out of the destroyed house and into the night. Some looked relieved, others angry, but all of them looked shaken, their worldview cracked by the impossible. A newborn vampire had killed the first elder. When they were gone, only the werewolves remained. Marcus Chun shifted back to wolf form, then back to human, pulling on pants that one of his pack members tossed him. "That was the most insane thing I've ever seen," he said conversationally. "And I once watched a grizzly bear fight a moose." "Thank you," Lucian said, "for coming, for fighting. I owe you a debt I can never repay." "Nah." Marcus grinned, showing teeth that were still slightly too sharp. "I owed you for that thing in Seattle. Now we're even. Plus, this was fun. We don't get to fight vampires nearly enough anymore. Good exercise." His pack laughed, the tension breaking. They were already healing from their wounds, werewolf metabolism working overtime. "Will the council really leave us alone?" Sophia asked Lucian quietly. "I don't know, but we bought time. And you," he looked at her with something like awe, "you killed Constantine, the first elder. Vampires will be telling that story for centuries." "Great," Sophia muttered. "Just what I wanted. To be a legend." Aurora's cry echoed from below, cutting through the aftermath of battle. Sophia's head whipped toward the sound, maternal instinct overriding everything else. She was moving before she even thought about it, racing down to the safe room. Aurora was awake in her crib, tiny face red with crying. Sophia scooped her up, cradling her close, checking for any sign of harm. But the baby was fine, just hungry and wet and unhappy about being alone. "I'm here, sweetie," Sophia cooed, rocking her gently. "Mama's here. You're safe. You're perfect. You're—" She stopped, looking down at her daughter, at this impossible, miraculous, hybrid child who'd already changed the world just by existing. Aurora looked up at her with those amber eyes and made a soft, cooing sound, one tiny hand reaching up to touch Sophia's face. "You're worth it," Sophia whispered. "Everything we just did, everything we might still have to do, you're worth all of it." Lucian appeared in the doorway, battered and bloody, but smiling. Behind him, Marcus Chun and a few of his wolves peered in curiously. "Is that the kid?" Marcus asked. "The one that's got the whole vampire world in uproar?" Sophia looked up protectively, but Lucian nodded. Marcus approached slowly, respectfully, and looked down at Aurora. The alpha werewolf's face softened immediately. "Well, damn," he said quietly. "She's beautiful. Got her mama's face and her daddy's eyes. And if I'm not mistaken..." He leaned closer, sniffing delicately. "She's got both kinds of magic in her. Vampire and human. Something completely new. Will that be a problem?" Sophia asked, ready to fight again if necessary. Marcus laughed. "Problem? Kid, that's the opposite of problem. That's hope. Maybe the first real hope for peace between our kinds that we've had in 1,000 years." He reached out one clawed finger, and Aurora grabbed it, gripping with surprising strength. "Welcome to the world, little one. Try not to break it too badly, yeah?" He pulled back and nodded to Lucian. "We'll stick around for a few days. Make sure those council vamps don't change their minds and come back. After that, you're on your own. But if you need the pack again, you call. Anyone who can kill the first elder is someone we want as an ally, not an enemy." "Thank you," Sophia said sincerely. Marcus and his wolves headed back upstairs, leaving the small family alone in the safe room. Lucian sat beside Sophia, his arm around her shoulders, both of them gazing at their daughter. Aurora had fallen back asleep, content now that she was fed and changed and held by her parents. "What do we do now?" Sophia asked. "Now!" Lucian kissed the top of her head gently. "Now we live. We raise our daughter. We deal with whatever the council decides. Together." "Together," Sophia agreed. She looked down at Aurora, at this perfect, impossible child who'd already survived more in her first day than most beings endure in a lifetime. At this family they'd built from love and blood in defiance of every law that said they shouldn't exist. And for the first time since dying and being reborn, Sophia felt something like peace. Whatever came next, council wars, vampire politics, the challenges of raising a hybrid child, they would face it together. The three of them against the world if necessary. Outside, dawn was approaching. Sophia could feel it in her bones, a new instinct warning her of the coming sun. She carried Aurora to one of the bedrooms in the safe room, laying her gently in the crib that Lucien had somehow procured. "Sleep, little Aurora," she whispered. "Dream of better days, of a world where you can be yourself without fear, where being different is celebrated, not hunted. Your mama and papa will make that world for you. I promise." Lucien appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. Together they watched their daughter sleep, this miracle child, this harbinger of change. "I love you," Lucien said softly. "I love you too. Both of you. My family." The sun rose beyond the reinforced walls, but here in their sanctuary, darkness protected them, and in that darkness, a new future began. 3 months later, Dorian arrived alone at the rebuilt estate. "The council has voted," he announced to Lucien and Sophia on the porch. 4-2, with one abstention. "You are to be left in peace, on the conditions. No more unauthorized vampires. The child will be monitored non-invasively, and if she proves dangerous, you surrender her for containment." Sophia's arms tightened around 3-month-old Aurora. "Absolutely not." "And if we refuse?" Lucien asked. "War. The council will bury you in bodies. Your daughter will be taken anyway after you're dead." The silence stretched. Aurora stirred in her sling, already developing faster than human babies. Stronger, more aware, her amber eyes unervingly sharp. "We accept," Lucien said quietly. Dorian nodded. "Monthly reports on her development. I'll visit quarterly to verify. That's all. We don't take her or experiment on her." He softened slightly. "The council isn't evil, Lucien. Just afraid." After he left, Marcus approached. "Word spreading about the newborn who killed the first elder. You'll get visitors, not all hostile. Aurora's power signature will attract attention from things beyond vampires and werewolves." The werewolves departed, and silence settled over the estate. Sophia learned control, how to hunt ethically, move through human society, manage her enhanced senses. Aurora grew alarmingly fast. By 3 months, she had a 6-month-old's development, sitting up, tracking objects, teething with fangs alongside baby teeth. The estate became their sanctuary. Sophia adapted to immortality better than expected. Yes, she missed the sun, but the trade-off was infinite time with her daughter and Lucien. On Aurora's 3-month birthday, Sophia rocked her daughter in the nursery. Lucien appeared in the doorway, watching them with tender love. "She's getting bigger," he said quietly. "Too fast." "Do you regret it?" Sophia asked, turning me, breaking the law, everything that came after. "For 100 years, Sophia, I never felt truly alive until I met you. Never understood what I was missing until I held our daughter. You gave me hope, purpose, love." He looked at her intently. "Even if we'd had only minutes together, it would have been worth it." Aurora's eyes suddenly flashed brilliant gold. The air shimmered. For just a moment, Sophia saw something in her daughter's eyes. Power. Ancient and new. Something uniquely hers. Then it vanished, and Aurora was just a baby again. "Whatever she is," Lucien whispered, "she's more than either of us. The council is right to be concerned, not because she's dangerous, but because she's powerful." Dorian's quarterly visits became routine. During his 4th visit, when Aurora was a year old but looked enacted too, he said, "The council is softening. They're starting to see Aurora as a bridge. The council is quietly discussing allowing more vampire-human pairings, closely monitored." "Our daughter is an experiment," Lucien said sharply. "No, she's a miracle. But miracles can be replicated." Dorian smiled. "Your daughter might be the first, but she doesn't have to be the only. A population of hybrids could change everything." Sophia looked at Aurora playing with blocks, building towers with frightening precision. If they allow other families, Aurora won't be alone. She'll have a community. Exactly. For the first time in my very long life, I'm optimistic about the future. You did that. All 3 of you. That night, Sophia and Lucien sat with Aurora between them. Their daughter looked up and grinned. showing her mix of baby teeth and tiny fangs. "Love you," she said clearly, her vocabulary already well beyond her apparent age. "We love you too, little one," Sophia whispered, "more than all the stars in the sky." Sophia carried Aurora to her crib, laying her down gently. "Sweet dreams, Aurora. Dream of a world that's ready for you." Lucian wrapped his arms around Sophia from behind as they watched their daughter sleep. "We'll make that world for her," he promised quietly. "Whatever it takes. Together, always together." The impossible family stood in the darkness, bound by love stronger than law, than death, than fear. Sophia had died in a hospital room, giving birth to the impossible. She'd been reborn, killed an elder, defied every law to stand here with the two people who made eternity worthwhile. Some things were worth dying for, and some things, precious, miraculous, impossible things, were worth living for too. Aurora stirred in her sleep, a smile crossing her tiny face. Her parents stood guard over those dreams, two immortal monsters who'd learned to be human again in the ways that mattered most. Love, hope, family. The dawn would come eventually, both literal and metaphorical. But for now, in the peaceful darkness, they were content. Together, always together, forever.